So if you've been looking for a way to hold your phone in place in your car, but not sure which option to choose, well, today I'm going to go over the Samsung Vehicle Dock. It's relatively cheap and inexpensive, and it's also relatively easy to use. I've included some links to it below just in case that's going to help, and I'll talk about some of its features today, including its pluses and its minuses. So let's first start, however, with how it comes in the box and what you get. What you get obviously is a bit of a leaflet, but in addition to that you get the apparatus itself. So it first comes with this stem, which is what would attach to the dashboard or the windscreen. The next bit you get is this screw, which would screw over the ball, which would go into a ball and socket joint. Then in addition to that, you get this vise. Now the vise is what holds the phone in place. It has this clamp, which you tighten, and then you undo it with a button at the back, which will enable you to put in phones of various sizes. So let's have a look at how it will operate. So let's start with the stem. The stem is relatively simple itself. I'll go over how to attach it later on. But you take the stem, then you need to attach the screw over the ball. Now the next step is you take the ball and you put it into the socket joint. Then you need to screw it together. Now the reason you need to screw it together is that if you don't, this vise is going to move around quite a lot, particularly if you have a heavy phone. So this screw here really keeps it together and ensures the movement is relatively stable and relatively smooth and everything doesn't fly everywhere. And as you can see, there's a slow movement here that enables you to have some access without the phone flying everywhere. So let's move on to how the vise works. You have the vise here. You take, for example, here's a smartphone battery. It's quite heavy, so I've chosen it just to see what happens when you have something heavy. You put it into the vise and you tighten the vise. It's relatively simple. Now what will then happen is it will hold in place here, and you'd hold it in place in the dashboard or on the windscreen. Now as you can see, this battery is relatively heavy, but it's not moving around too much despite its heaviness. So what we then do is we have this phone and the vise. Now what we can do to take it out is you press the button at the back. The button at the back will undo the vise and it will come out, which is relatively self-explanatory really, and then you can put it aside. So say you want to attach it to the dashboard or the windscreen. How does that work? Well, we take this suction cap at the bottom here and it attaches as you would expect. You push it down onto the surface, then there's a lever that you depress and that will cause it to stick in place. It's then relatively solid, and I'm moving it around here and it's not really coming off. Now say you want to remove it from the dashboard or the windscreen, you lift up the lever here and it will just come off. So that's relatively easy and self-explanatory, and there's nothing terribly unusual about that. So that's how it works. Let's go over the positives. Well, the major positive is the price, of course. It's cheap. Another major positive is that this is always going to move around in a relatively free way, so you can move it around to whatever angle suits to avoid glare. Another plus is this vise will enable phones of various sizes, and it's quite stable, and will also take phones that are relatively heavy. Also, it's relatively easy and relatively solid to attach to a surface or to a windscreen. Alright, so those are the pluses. What are the negatives? Well, the negative is if you see this surface here, that's not a charger at all, it's just a plastic surface. So if you need to take it for a long drive, then you're going to need to use additional cables or something similar. It's not going to charge itself. So that's a negative if you really need something that's going to charge your phone while it's sitting there. Now that's the major negative and the major feature that you would be missing out on. To get that feature, of course, you need to spend much more on another type of dashboard holder. So you get what you pay for to some extent. So those are my views of this Samsung Vehicle Dock. Basically it's cheap, it's easy to use, and it's not a bad option. Of course it doesn't have all the features you might want, but of course that's represented in the price you ultimately end up paying. Now I hope this has given you some idea about whether this is worth considering as a way of holding your phone. I've included links to it below just so you can get some more information and you can access some relatively cheap ways of buying it, but I hope this video has been interesting to you in and of itself. So thanks so much for tuning in, thanks for listening to me, and if the video has been interesting, it would be great if you could click the like and subscribe buttons just so it can help out this channel. So thanks so much once again, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.